This war, in my opinion, has always hinged on Crimea. It's the important bit because it has warm water ports. And while Russia does has some Black Sea access, they don't have enough to satisfy the military and international trade desires. For those who don't know, all of the rest of Russia's ports are like ice locked for a lot of the year. So, yeah, making, even moving the boat very difficult because it's stuck in a big block of ice. And then there's big floating bits of ice. So, yeah, they really want the Black Sea ports. And if they lose that, I think that's so much of a loss of face for Putin that he'll have to retire or he'll be removed. I've said for a long time we need to cut the neck from the roads coming in from Melitopol and Oleski. We need to cut those roads going into the neck of Crimea, and it appears we are cutting a vast amount of traffic on there. We've hit bridges with big munitions. I'm not 100% if those bridges are completely out of service yet, but yeah, and the Kerch Bridge has been under renewed attack, and we've revealed like a massive submarine. It's like it's a fucking school bus sized underwater drone, and if you can get that under the Kerch Bridge, you'll do some serious damage to important bits of it. Knock it out. So those things are happening and are about to happen. We've also got sufficient multiple 100-kilogram payload missile systems domestically produced in Ukraine of our own now. So, while the Kerch Bridge is indeed well defended, we could potentially raise enough to overwhelm it with a combined missile, drone and sea drone attack, possibly with a bit of sabotage thrown in, like SBU, I believe, pulled off before with the large munition in a truck that was going over the Kerch Bridge. So yeah, if that happens and we are able, and by the way, Ukraine has also been hitting all the little ports along the coast of the Azov Sea. So all those little ferries and stuff that would go back and forth and potentially be able to take stuff and people to Crimea are all being affected as well. So there are 2.4 million people in Crimea. I started writing all this down. Where's my notebook? Come on, Joe. If you can just see this quickly, I won't have to pause the video. Bugger. Right, I think I can remember most of it. So you've got 2.4 million people in Crimea, okay? That's at 4 litres of water a day, which in a hot fucking place like Crimea really is the minimum, Like, if you have to go outside and do stuff, like soldiers do, and you're wearing armour, carrying stuff like soldiers do, then 4 litres of water very well might not be enough safely and medically for you in a day, okay? So let's just keep it at 4 litres, So 4 litres of water a day, that's 9.6 million litres, right? Which is 6.4 million 1.5 litre bottles. And to ship all of that, you need somewhere in the region of 535 lorries, okay? With 33 EU pallets on each. I believe that's the calculation correct. I also calculated it in 30,000 litre tankers, and there were less of them, but they're a logistical nightmare in their own right. How does one decant the water from a tanker efficiently? What do you put it into another tank, and then that's a municipal system? Can you just do that? Yeah, you know what I mean? So the logistics of that and the target fucking rich environment that presents for Ukraine is vast. And then you've got fuel on that. Now, they've already talked about fuel crises in Crimea. The Russians are complaining about it. There's people making videos, and the Russians are telling people not to make videos talking about the fuel crisis and stuff. But you've got to remember, all those people in Crimea, right, need fuel of some sort, be it gas to heat food or electricity for the lights and whatever appliances in the homes, and they need petrol and diesel for their cars and the work machines to do things and move around. So I'm not sure how many fuel trucks need to come into Crimea, or tankers, right, to fulfill its daily needs, but quite a lot. It's very easy to use 4 litres of fuel a day just driving around the countryside, popping back and forth to little villages at relaxed speeds. So then you've got to think about the fuel constraints to move all those lorries carrying just water. We've only talked about water, by the way, so far. That's 535 lorries a day for the bare fucking minimum of water, right? The absolute bare minimum. You've got that many people, they all need 4 litres of water a day. Can you get that 4 litres of water a day to all those people? Crimea has been suffering from droughts for fucking years. It is not a place where the land gives you enough water to survive at fucking all. There are times of year where, they do have aquifers and stuff there, but in the summer, those things are fucking empty. So you've then got the fact that you've got basically the conditions to create a siege, an old-fashioned medieval siege. And while that might be brutal, we have to remember that all the Russians who are living there are colonizers. They moved and took advantage of the fact that Russia had invaded and annexed the place. So, tough fucking shit. They've got a choice. They can leave, or they can die of thirst this summer. And then they can freeze in the fucking winter after it when there's no fuel. And Ukraine is rapidly getting to a point where this is the de facto state. And if all the citizens leave, right, and then you've only got the military contingent, which seems to be numbered at between 30,000 and like 100,000 Russian troops or something like that. Again, there's quite a few variations. I guess it goes up and down, you know what I mean? I remember a time when I was still in the service when a fuck ton of troops came up into Kherson way from Crimea, and we were awful nervous about that at the minute, because it turned out they were going further on up, but there's enough of them to do a crossing. That's an army, that is, But anyway, I digress. So, even if it's just a very small, a massively reduced civilian populace in Crimea, because not everyone would leave. There are still loyal Ukrainian citizens who are working with Atesh, which is part of our counter occupation intelligence services, which is a public thing, by the way, if you don't know about it. But there's good loyal Ukrainians there who are passing on information and helping guys carry out missions and stuff, and the poor Ukrainians who are just probably like old women in babushkas who are stuck in the thick of it. But hopefully, our people have had time to prepare and kind of have probably accepted the fact that this was the way things were going. And I don't think those Russian holidaymakers with the faith in Putin propaganda will. So this is it. I'm not going to say I'm going to say that right now the balance is in our favour. At the moment, the match swings our way. But I don't like words like winning, okay? However, people love to shout and cheer and jump on the propaganda wagon, but propaganda from a soldier's point of view is fucking dangerous. too much good propaganda, and we've got this and we've got that and we're so great, leads to shit like the 2023 counter-offensive. You know, that didn't fucking work out, did it? You know what I mean? Fucking journalists and generals and arms companies all collaborating together to build up enough hype to send everyone off to fucking ill thought out and difficult to achieve objectives. But anyway, again, I digress. But yeah, you know, I don't want to say we're winning, because there's still a fuck lot that could happen. But it looks like we actually could win. If we can siege Crimea, if we can isolate Crimea from Russian supplies, the Russians are going to either have to just A, leave all of them, B, most of the civvies leave, right? And that's it. They just take the shit and fucking go as best they can and leave the military there, who then will be much, much easier to identify. You know, if there's only, even if there's 100,000 fucking dudes, yeah, we can deal with that over the winter and next spring, you know. If there's way, way less civvies. Or C, they'll actually have to concede defeat. They'll actually have to go, right, Ukraine, please stop, or all these people are going to die of thirst. And we can just be like, fuck them. They're all invaders as well, as far as we're concerned. You know, we won't tell you what, we'll make you a deal. Any boats that are going back towards Russia, right, and stay there, yeah, we won't blow them up. You know, and that's, yeah, like, it doesn't sound very nice, and I'm sure you know that, again, of the day, there's, you know, families, there's Russian families and stuff in Crimea, and I'd appeal to those Russian families now to look at your kids and look at your wife and realise that you took advantage of your country invading somewhere to get this nice property, and it's time to fucking accept the loss, pack your bags and fuck off home, or you might get caught up in something that you can't escape. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Crimea situation. Great work.